In this video, I'll show you how to use the data that the expenditure tables in the PDFs from the previous video were generated from. If we open the latest dataset for national expenditure, you'll see two resources. A link to the API, but the API is quite complex, so I'll leave that for another video. Right now, the easiest thing to use is the pivot data. You can download it with Explore and then download and open it using Excel or OpenOffice, Calc or Google Sheets. And it's a very big and complex spreadsheet, but don't worry, it's quite easy to get familiar with it. These boxes don't show up in LibreOffice, but they might be useful to you in Excel. So the easiest way to get familiar with a big table for me is to enable filters on the columns. If they're not already enabled, you can just click the filter button, but when you're in the heading cell, and then start having a look. What are the options in the filters? So I want to look at just higher education for now. And then suddenly there's a lot fewer options to look at once in the program column and the subprogram column and so on. So do this with each of the columns and see if you can narrow down until you get only a few rows left, and then have a look at the amount columns. So there are multiple amount columns because Treasury has chosen to show different financial years and budget phases in different columns. In the provincial data, those will be in separate rows. So you'll have to look for the budget phase and financial year column. But in this data set, have a look. The column name the heading has a financial year and then a budget phase in the heading. So MTEF is the next year and 2 years looking forward. We're in the 2018-19 budget document. So there we see the original budget. That's the budget that was recently tabled in Parliament. Then for the next financial year back, you'll see 3 columns. The voted or main appropriation is the budget that Parliament actually passed as law, saying this is the money that's allocated to these departments. The next column is the adjusted appropriation, which is if they change the estimates and change the budgets, again by law. The final one is the revised estimate. That's what they believe that, quite confidently, that the budgets will end up spending actually. Looking further back, you can see audited outcomes and another adjusted appropriation. Audited outcomes is when they've taken the revised estimates and audited them and made any adjustments to make sure that there aren't any mistakes anymore. So let's do something, now that we are familiar with the data, we can do something interesting. The best way to do that at first is to find a number that you can verify against. So we previously looked at the PDF for the higher education department. And right at the top is a table summarizing the budget for each program for this department for the 2018-19 financial year. So the total expenditure estimate is 89,950,000,000. The unit is shown in the top left of the table. So let's try to replicate that. In our spreadsheet, we're going to create a pivot table. There are so many rows, if we want to sum up the amount ourselves, so a pivot table can make them a lot faster for us. So we select a cell in the table, and then we go to Data, Pivot Table, Create. It automatically selects the table for us, which is what we want. Then we say OK. We want to filter by department, so I'm going to move the department column to the page fields box. That allows us to filter by department. Each of these fields corresponds to a column in the table. So we want to look at only the 2018-19 budget right now. let's start simple. So I'm moving that to the data fields box, and it automatically chooses to sum them. You can also choose other ways of aggregating that data. If I click OK, it creates a new worksheet, and once I readjust the column widths, you can see this is a very big number. So that should be the total expenditure for all departments. If I then select higher education, the number goes down to 89950,026. Going back to the PDF, we get 89950. So why are they different? In this table, the numbers are actually in millions of rands. So we have 89 billion, and in this table we have 89 million. That suggests that the data in this spreadsheet is actually in thousands of rands. Note that in the API we've adjusted the numbers to be in rands, but in the spreadsheets they'll usually be in thousands of rands unless the table notes otherwise. If we want to go into a little bit more detail, we can drill down into the data. So if I go to edit layout by right clicking on the pivot table, I can then move the program column to the rows field. That's going to give me a row for every program. And then if I just readjust the column widths again so I can read them easily, it's going to show that the administration program has 432 million rand budgeted. Going back to the spreadsheet, I can see administration has 432 million rand budgeted. That's it for now.